My name is John Meredith, and I'm the director of photography of Bullets. I've always had an interest in imagery and images, so from a pretty young age, I started taking still photography. My dad has always been a photographer, and his dad did the same thing, so it's kind of been in the family. And that just kind of gradually transformed into cinematography because I became kind of fascinated with moving images and movies in general. Shooting the teaser, we shot a lot of stuff in essentially a day and a half. We shot really fast, and I think the biggest challenge of that was that we had like a skeleton crew for it, and I was wearing roughly 16 hats for it. The hardest part about it was, making sure the sound was right, essentially being the sound operator and the camera operator at the same time while moving lights and doing handheld shots and focusing everything. So I think we got it done very efficiently. The biggest challenge, though, was just doing so many jobs at once and still trying to keep the our main focus in mind about what we were trying to capture. So during the dialogue scene of the trailer with Mark and Hugo, almost the entire thing was shot handheld, and because I was doing all those jobs at once, and I'm hand-holding the camera, it was easier for me to just hold the camera the entire time. So I have a camera on my shoulder, and I'm moving lights around the entire time. But because we shot so much, and I'm looking through a viewfinder, and this eye is focusing at roughly 2 inches, and this eye is focusing at 10 or 15 feet, we shot for so long that I had to keep this eye up against the viewfinder or keep it closed, because when my two eyes would try to focus at the same distance, they couldn't do it anymore. So I'm thinking for next time that I just get an eye patch and just cover up this eye when I'm not using it. That might solve that issue. The reason I wanted to shoot in 2.35, which is the super wide screen, is that I prefer wider screens. I think the way that you see, I want to say it's like the cinematographer's aspect ratio. For actors, 4:3 is actually better because you can see a face better in a square, but I think the way your eyes see is more panoramic. So I just like that panoramic view, and we had shot a lot of commercial spots in 16:9 because when you're delivering for web or for TV, especially for TV, everything comes out in 16:9, but we had the option this time to shoot in any aspect ratio that we wanted, and I just prefer that panoramic view because I think your eyes look more this way than they do up and down, so the wider it gets, I think the more natural it is. Plus it's awesome. So aside from the lighting in the poker room, what we plan on doing is the circle dolly track with a jib mounted on the dolly. So we have a very dynamic way of shooting it. We can shoot it from any angle. We can go over the poker table. We can go up and down. So a circle track around the table with a 6-foot jib on the dolly track. And we're talking about, when we start out, having super dynamic shots, so always moving in some direction, whether we're going over them, showing cards, and revealing people's faces, and basically just moving, as much movement as possible. The camera never stops going. And as we get, as the poker scene gets more serious, I guess, and less fun for the players, we're going to start to go into more static shots and stop the movement a little bit. So we want to contrast the beginning when it's all fun and with very dynamic camera movement, and then by the end almost having it essentially locked down to static shots. We shot the teaser for Bullets completely on a 50mm 1.4, and we shot it almost the whole trailer wide open. And basically for the speed, and that's the only lens that was that fast that we had access to. For the full series, we'll still be shooting with fast lenses. We'll have more options, though. I think we're gonna try and get a 28, a 50, 85, and a 135. We'll be shooting all primes, and probably towards the low range of the 2.0 to 3.5. The lighting for the poker room, it's actually relatively simple. We just got a big room so that our center light doesn't spill too much on the walls. And because we didn't have much equipment for the trailer, we basically, that ceiling in that room is 15 feet tall. So it's way higher than we need, but higher ceilings are ideal. So I hung a 500 watt light from the ceiling and then basically put a garbage bag around it so that it only shines directly down on the table. And then, so most of the light for the characters in that scene is coming from bounce off the table and a little bit directly off the light. And I think the backgrounds were lit by bouncing fairly low wattage lights off the ceiling, but we wanted to keep that background, really underlit. So it's my favorite scene, and it's one of the more simple lighting setups, just because where they are. We shot the teaser for Bullets on the 5D Mark II, and we are shooting potentially the full length on the 5D Mark III, only because we're shooting a lot of stuff in low light, and the 3 just does a slightly better job of it. It's slightly less It's slightly less noisy at higher ISOs, and it just produces a slightly more clean image. But I mean, other than that, they're fairly similar cameras. They're just really easy to deal with, especially on our budget. If you shoot with a bigger camera, everything else has to get bigger than all the support. And we're talking about doing a lot of stuff on dollies and jibs and things like that. You upgrade the camera one level and it gets twice as heavy. That means everything else underneath it has to get twice as heavy, and it just kind of the whole budget goes up because of that. So I think the 5Ds are just easy cameras to work with because they're small. They can go wherever. They can go on light rigs, and we can do the movement that we're talking about doing relatively easy. I changed from photography to cinematography actually relatively recently. I probably was in I did still photography for probably 12 years before I even considered doing video. I'd always done like little stupid stop motion videos and things like that, just kind of messing around, but no intent of doing anything serious with it until probably college. So about 6 or 7 years ago is when they didn't even have a photography program, and I had been becoming interested in video because that's the way my dad had gone. He had sort of gone from stills to video, and so that is what I was around. So it was probably around college that I started taking it a lot more seriously.